Reporting from Arkham Asylum, this is Gotham Rogues. In this video we take a look at the comic book storyline, Arkham Asylum Living Hell. Arkham Asylum Living Hell is a 6-issue miniseries published in 2003, written by Slott and penciled by Sook. In it we're introduced to Warren White, aka the Great White Shark, a playboy millionaire who gained his fortune by scamming a whole bunch of innocent people. He was eventually caught by the law, however, and in order to get off lightly, Warren foolishly pleaded insanity. Little did he know that the last thing you want to be in Gotham City is criminally insane, as that earns you a ticket to the most vile hell on the face of the earth, Arkham Asylum. We then follow Warren's horrifying experiences as the new fish of Arkham, picked on and severely abused by the rest of the mad inmates. Meanwhile, there's something else going on in the asylum, something demonic that will transform the place into a literal living hell. So this one has been highly requested by you guys, as has several of the characters appearing in this story. Well, now I'm doing it. So Living Hell opens up as essentially an Arkham version of Oz, the prison TV show. We follow an ordinary guy who's wrongly placed in an institution where he doesn't belong, as it's filled with all manner of violent and sadistic criminal scum. He's then subjected to severe harassment by the other inmates and eventually grows tougher and mad himself, becoming a so-called supervillain in his own right. It's a story of how this place turns ordinary men into crazy monsters as a means to adapt. Sounds great, but then the comic detours into a supernatural horror tale about ghosts and goblins. Even Etrigan the Demon shows up and is suddenly forced on us as a secondary protagonist. Basically every review I've seen of this brings that up as a negative, and I'm not going to be any different. I want a story about Arkham and the crazy inmates, not some damn supernatural tale about demons and hell. Do one or the other. You can't really do both, especially not if you're going to handle it as poorly as here. There are some small bits about the demonic stuff sprinkled throughout the story, but then in the third act it just suddenly takes over the entire thing. It just doesn't work, and you're kinda wondering what the hell it is you're reading. Why didn't Slott just write this as an Oz-style Arkham story, focusing on Warren and his hardships in the asylum? That's how it starts, and that's all it should have been. If you pick up a book about Arkham, that's what you want. Anyway, so with those complaints out of the way, let's talk about Warren White himself, the Great White Shark. To me, this tale is at its core about how Arkham Asylum only makes people worse. Send in a normal guy and he'll come out a full-on mad, disfigured, gimmicky rogue. That's what happens to Warren, and it's the entire point of the character. I only see him as a one-shot rogue because he served his purpose in this story. I don't think there's really anything more to say about him. He did appear in more comics though, but nothing of substance. He's often just portrayed as a mob boss type, and what's the point of that? I know some of you are big fans of him, and I'm not saying that you couldn't do more stories with the character. There probably are some great tales yet to be told about the Great White Shark, but personally I feel it to be kinda redundant. He's good as he is here, a meek, sane man thrusted into this insane and harsh world. Although he's kind of an asshole as he scammed millions, you still sympathize with the guy because that's how the comic presents him. One thing I don't like is the whole worst person I've ever met thing. Every character he talks to, even the freaking Joker, says that Warren is the worst person they've ever met because he fooled people out of their pensions and such. Yeah, that's pretty low, and he certainly is a dickwad. Is he worse than serial killers who eat people? That's the clientele of Arkham after all, and he's supposed to be worse than them? I don't get it. Is it supposed to be a running joke or something? If so, I guess I'm missing the point. If it was only Joker who told it to him, then it would have been funny, as he's a psychotic mass murderer, but at least he doesn't take his victims' pensions. That's a gag right there, and it works. But then everyone else also says it, and it doesn't really make freaking sense. I also have to question the fact that White isn't familiar with Arkham. How can anybody live in the DC universe and not know of Arkham Asylum? He also doesn't seem to know the Riddler, as he mocks his spandex outfit in the van en route to the asylum. Yet he's heard about Death Rattle, a psychotic cult leader who was a new character appearing only in this comic. So Warren knows of this tiny nobody, but not the goddamn Riddler or Arkham Asylum. Doesn't make any sense. Let's talk about some of the other inmates. Now, the classic Bat-Rogues kinda take a back seat in this comic, and instead the focus is on the new characters created for this story. You do get fun bits with some of the OGs though, like Joker. He has a couple of brief yet great scenes, like one where he happens to enter the prison shower at the same time as Warren. Of course, Warren becomes terrified that he's showering next to the Joker. He gets so nervous that he drops his soap. Obviously an ample opportunity for the insane clown to do something nasty, right? No, he just politely picks his soap up for him. Then of course we've got Two-Face, who I guess has the largest role of the classic guys. Early in the story, the Mad Hatter shows Harvey a mirror and informs the binary rogue that his faces are in the wrong place, as the left side of the brain controls the right and vice versa. Therefore his scarred side is actually the good one. This causes Harvey to snap and smash the mirror with his bare hands, slicing himself up. As a result, Dent is forced to wear bandages on his hands for quite some time and is unable to flip his coin. Meanwhile, Warren has been advised to partner up with another inmate for protection, and seeing this opportunity, he offers to become Harvey's coin flip guy, flipping the coin for him. For a while he's protected by Two-Face, but of course it doesn't last forever. That's a damn funny bit and a clever way to make use of Dent. I love Scarecrow too in this comic, even though he appears very briefly. During one scene taking place in a mess hall, Crane sits next to Warren and is delighted by his scream of terror when Warren finds a finger in his food. The finger turns out to just belong to the puppet Scarface. But anyway, wanting to hear more of this sweet music, Crane jams a fork in White's leg. He's unsatisfied by this performance though, as it's not a scream of fear, but of pain. Then at the end of the entire miniseries, when all of the demons and ghosts and other macabre shit has been dealt with, the administration decides to blame it all on Scarecrow's fear toxin, throwing him into solitary confinement for 3 months as punishment. These small funny bits are great, but none of these characters are really explored or even treated as actual characters. They're instead portrayed as two-dimensional, extreme versions of themselves, basically insane cardboard cutouts, only there to represent the madness of Arkham that Warren has to endure. This story isn't interested in examining them, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, as the whole point is to see the rogues through Warren's eyes. There are several new inmates introduced here though, and we do kind of explore them. Humpty Dumpty is an obese, docile, and childlike man who is obsessed with taking broken things apart and then putting them back together to fix them, including people. He befriends White and takes him under his wing after Two-Face abandons him, but it's only because Humpty thinks Warren is such an asshole that he must be broken, thus in need of fixing. I really like this character, as he's actually a nice person who is just so disturbed that he doesn't understand he's killing people when he takes them apart to fix them. Humpty Dumpty is both very likable yet scary at the same time, and that's pretty tough to pull off. Then we've got Jane Doe, a female serial killer who wants to become her victims and take over their entire lives. After she's killed somebody, she makes a skin suit identical to that person and wears it, living their lives for a while in some attempt at finding herself. She's a total cipher and doesn't have a personality of her own, so she only feels contempt when in someone else's shoes. This is a pretty fascinating and very creepy character, and she's definitely my second favorite after Humpty Dumpty among these new guys. Then we've got Doodlebug, Death Rattle, and Junkyard Dog. Doodlebug is an artist who's quite fanatical about his art, even committing murder if that's what it requires, often painting with his victim's blood. He plays a pivotal role in the story, as he's used as a vessel by the demons to summon a greater demon. Death Rattle is a mad cult leader who murdered all of his followers and claims that he can speak with the dead. Junkyard Dog is a guy who likes to collect trash. Yeah, these three aren't that great and kind of forgettable compared to Humpty and Jane Doe. While I like all of these new inmates, I kinda wish Dan Slott had used old forgotten rogues in some of these roles instead. Like Doodlebug could easily have been a revamped and much darker version of Crazy Quilt, while Death Rattle could have been Deacon Blackfire, the main villain from the Cult miniseries, who was also a mad cult leader. Jane Doe, as much as I like her, is pretty reminiscent of Faceless, the one-shot rogue who took on the faces of his victims, so her role could have been filled by him. Other obscure villains who could have been featured are Cornelius Sturck and Preston Payne, the third Clayface. They were just made for a dark and twisted story like this. But Dan Slott doesn't seem to be that interested in the already established rogues, and instead just wanted to create his own characters. I can't quite condone this, me being such a massive fan of the classic villains. Why tell an Arkham story and not use them? All in all, I like Arkham Asylum Living Hell, but I don't love it. It could have been amazing if the story had focused on the Oz aspect and neglected the supernatural demon stuff, and if it had made use of and explored the classic rogues more. I don't mind some new characters, but there's just way too many here, and I haven't even mentioned the Arkham staff, like Aaron Cash, the guard who got his hand bitten off by Killer Croc. He's great and I really like him, and it feels like he's been a part of Arkham for much longer than this. If DC was smart enough to hire me as a writer, besides pitching a Riddler miniseries, I'd pitch them an ongoing Arkham comic, styled like a prison drama. My cast would be an even blend of the major league rogues and obscure forgotten ones. I would only introduce one, maybe two at the most, new inmates, because there's just so much you can do with the old ones. Besides, they're the ones people mainly want to see. Scarecrow and Poison Ivy have huge fan bases, while nobody even remembers Junkyard Dog. So there you have it. That's Arkham Asylum Living Hell, a comic with some great parts, but overall a kinda disappointing read. Let me know what you think of this story and the new characters it introduced down in the comments. And as always, remember, Arkham Asylum awaits you in the next video.